Good morning. Okay, this is our recording number 3. Sorry it has taken me so long. We're going to be talking about chapters 11 through 16 today. Got quite a bit to talk about because remember, this is from the monster's point of view, the creature's point of view, and so we're kind of getting a different perspective here. Okay, so let me get my pen ready to go. My colors. Okay, so chapter 11, Creature's the narrator. Okay, in the beginning, whenever he's talking about like the first moments of his life, it kind of follows the path of Genesis almost. If you look at that, it's kind of a subtle allusion. It mentions it also in your footnote in the back of your book, if you look at that. But he says first, let's see here, that a multiplicity of sensations seized me, and I saw, felt, heard, and smelt at the same time. And it was indeed a long time before I learned to distinguish between the operations of my various senses. By degrees, I remember a stronger light being pressed, or a stronger light pressed upon my nerves, so that I was obliged to shut my eyes. And then he just, he sees that whenever he closes his eyes, darkness, comes over him, and he's just kind of figuring out the light and everything like that. And then he figures out that there's animals in the world, and then he kind of, by slower degrees, learns what it means to basically be alive. Okay, he fixes his eyes on the moon, and this is our symbol for the passage of time. So anytime he talks about the different moon phases, he's basically saying that time is passing by. He's self-educated through observation. He learns how not how to make fire just yet, but he learns that, fire will keep him warm, that it will cook his food, that it'll basically make him happier. And so he tries to keep that fire going there at the beginning. Um, Let me see here, make sure I'm not. And his self-education is basically just our normal survival skills. Okay, the fire, and then he's just kind of figuring out, where a source of water would be, and food, and what food is good, what food is not. Um, on page 94, there's just a small allusion to the number 3. He said that he'd passed 3 days and 3 rambles. Remember that 3 is our perfect number. It's an allusion to religion, to Christianity specifically, and it's a male number as well. So then we have an allusion to Paradise Lost on page 95. So let me write that up here. 95. I already have to extend my page. Okay, so it's Paradise. Let's see here. Paradise Lost, and he's talking about Pandemonium. Pandemonium was the place that was created in hell for Satan and his closest demon angels, and it was considered to be like this place of refuge from the lake of fire. So that's what that means. And a lot of people, I know in college I read the section where it first talks about them being in Pandemonium. That's one of the most popular sections of Paradise Lost to read. And then here we meet the family that we'll later discover they are, or we'll later know them by the DeLaceys. So he's just watching them. He's in this little hovel that's kind of connected to their house. He's watching their every move. He realizes that they're really sad, and they kind of look at each other with, melancholy eyes, but he doesn't know why until later. And he's fascinated with the humans. He thinks that they're absolutely beautiful. He says on page 97, nothing could exceed in beauty the contrast between these two excellent creatures. So he's very thorough in his descriptions of the family, and it just kind of shows how much they mean to him. Okay, so now we're on chapter 12. So he couldn't at first understand their sadness. Oh, my sleeve is making lines on there. Okay. He couldn't understand their sadness, but then he realizes, that it's poverty. But he doesn't understand this concept of poverty. He thinks that they're rich because they have everything that he longs for. This idea of companionship and a warm place to live and food that will sustain them, at least for a little while. He doesn't understand like why um, they consider themselves impoverished. We have the concept of altruism introduced here. Felix and Agatha show altruism to their father by giving him food that they need and they want, but they give that to him, and he's blind, so he doesn't know that they are sacrificing their own nourishment for his. And then the creature, he really helps the DeLacy's out. If you remember, he is the one who carries firewood for them. He eventually goes out and does some of the chores for Felix so he doesn't have to, and so he can stay and help Agatha a little bit. So I'll put up here Felix and Agatha, and then also the creature. And we get this very empathetic creature now. This is something that we haven't seen from the creature, and we really don't normally associate with, like this beast mentality that we have of Frankenstein's monster. But he really does, in effect, love this family, and he wants to help them as much as he possibly can. Um, he wants to win the family over um, with words, because he knows how ugly he is with his appearance. He knows he's frightening, and so he's thinking, if he's eloquently presenting himself like through speech, that they will be more accepting of him, and they will become aware of his presence, and they will welcome him into the family. Something that I wanted to mention, just like a kind of little side note here, this spelling of demon. I know one of you wrote, like a little question mark on your quiz. So this is important, okay? It could be that she's just spelling it kind of how the first Latin translation was spelled, but also the AE often signified that they were good spirits, okay, rather than demons, like hateful, awful, evil spirits. So they use that AE, and it's actually, if I remember how to, it's that symbol in phonetics. But they use that to differentiate between the types of demons or spirits. So it could signify a good spirit, but we really don't have any sort of proof about that. Okay, chapter 13. We have the arrival of Safi. Okay, Safi, we see that Felix, has feelings for her. Um, That's supposed to be a heart. Gross. That looks horrible. Okay, there we go. Heart. That, I don't know that that was much better. But anyways, Felix is in love with her, and we kind of infer that from the beginning from his, he was really melancholy, and the creature is talking about how sad his face looks, and then all of a sudden, Safi rides in, and Felix is happy, and he spends the evening talking with his father about her. So now we have a vehicle basically for Shelley to use for the creature to learn language. Okay, so we have the character of Safi in place because she is Middle Eastern. She's Turkish, and so she does not know French, and so which is what the DeLacy's speak. And so the creature learns by listening to these French lessons. Okay, from Safi's language lessons. Okay, so the creature here has a major connection with Frankenstein because he is on the pursuit for knowledge. He's obsessed with learning the language of these humans that he wants to communicate with so badly. And so he's going to do anything he can to learn basically, or to gain knowledge. But then this pursuit for knowledge, like Walton, or I mean, not like Walton, like Frankenstein, is making his life kind of miserable. So we see that on page 107. And let me turn to that really quickly and read you the section that I'm talking about. Okay. He said, I cannot describe to you. Um, let's see here. Yeah, I cannot describe to you the agony that these reflections inflicted upon me. I tried to dispel them, but sorrow only increased with knowledge. Oh, that I had forever remained in my native wood, nor known nor felt beyond the sensations of hunger, thirst, and heat. Of what a strange nature is knowledge! It clings to the mind when it has once seized on it, like a lichen on the rock. I wished sometimes to shake off all thought and feeling, but I learned there was but one means to overcome the sensation of pain, and that was death, a state which I feared yet did not understand. So this knowledge is making him miserable because he realizes that he's alone. No one else feels the way he feels. Um, okay, so then he has feelings of abandonment at the end of 13. Okay, chapter 14, super short. We have the story of Safi, or I mean, sorry, Safi, and her journey and how she got to Felix. So Felix decides, well, first, Safi's father gets in trouble for some things. Mainly, he's persecuted for his religion. He would have been Muslim in a Christian country at a time when tolerance was not really in vogue. And so he was imprisoned. Felix, he realized the injustice of the justice system, and he wants to help him out. Um, Safi's father then says, I will reward you greatly for helping me out. Felix is, kind of awkward about receiving any sort of reward, but then he meets Safi and he's thinking, oh, hey, now this could be my reward that I accept. I'd be all right with that. And so he helps Safi and her father escape. Safi's father promises Safi to Felix, and it isn't until they're basically within, safe boundaries that Safi's father, you know, kind of retracts on his deal. In the meantime, Felix's father, old Mr. DeLacy, and Agatha are imprisoned in France, and Felix has to go and help them out. And so they go to they go from this lofty, rich, basically, place in society, and then they fall and they are completely impoverished, living in a little hovel in the countryside of France. And so, anyways, they have this major downfall, and it's because of Felix. I mean, while Felix, his intentions were honorable, um, I feel like they were honorable. I mean, he was just trying to help a man that he felt was innocent. He ended up, I mean, basically ruining his father and his sister's lives because he pursued that. I mean, what am I trying to say? I'm sorry, I'm stuttering around. I was looking at somebody at my door. He was basically consumed by his passion, and he doesn't, like, he has tunnel vision basically, and it doesn't matter if his family, has to suffer. I mean, he helps them out and he feels guilty, but he didn't really have any sort of forethought of that. Okay, so Safi realizes that her father has lied to Felix and that she's actually not going to marry him. Her father really doesn't want her to marry Felix because he's a Christian and he absolutely loathes the idea that Safi is a Christian because of her mother. Um, and so he doesn't want them to get married, but Safi finds a way to get out, and she returns to Felix, and then they're all happy and everything is wonderful. So um, Safi is a very strong character. She would have been modeled a lot after Mary Shelley herself, because Mary Shelley went against her father's wishes and married Percy Bysshe Shelley, even though her father absolutely forbade it. It just, I mean, she didn't care. She loves him, and so she was going to do whatever she wanted to do. She was going to kind of follow her heart in that sense, and Safi did the exact same thing. Okay, sorry I didn't have very many notes on her. I just really just kind of talked about her. Okay, so chapter 15, we have quite a few things to talk about. So we have several illusions in the beginning. We have the sorrows. Oh, shoot, it switched pages on me. Okay, so the sorrows of Werther. It's sometimes spelled Werther with an H. Okay. So what this was, it was a book about a guy who committed suicide because of unrequited love. He was friends with this couple, and then he falls in love with the woman, and she doesn't love him because she's married. Hello. And so he commits suicide. And sadly, it really made suicide very popular after its publication. Young men were found all over um, after, after they killed themselves, and they were holding a copy of The Sorrows of Werther. Um, then we have an allusion to Plutarch. Plutarch wrote the noble lives of Grecians and Romans. He wrote about basically Roman society, Grecian society. Shakespeare used him as one of his sources whenever he wrote Julius Caesar. And then the big one, we have Paradise Lost by, oops, by Milton. Um, so this is about Satan being cast out of heaven because he is an overreacher. And so there's parallels between Satan, Frankenstein, and the creature. This whole pursuit idea, guys. I keep saying it, and it's because it's important. In Paradise Lost, Satan is pursuing more knowledge and more power, and so much that he tries to overthrow God because he wants to have all of the knowledge and power for himself. And so he is cast into the lake of fire, and then he, creates pandemonium, and it's forever an everlasting battle between God and Satan. Okay, so in this chapter, the creature seeks out Mr. DeLacy, seeks Mr. DeLacy, and it's because he's blind. He's blind to the creature's physical faults. He's not going to judge him at first sight, which is so sad to me. I feel like even in our society, we judge people based on that first appearance. If we were all just kind of blind to each other's physical faults, think about how many people we would get to know so much better, and how many more human connections could be made if we could just look past some things like that. And then, of course, in 15, he's completely rejected by the DeLacy family. So it's rejection again. Every point that he turns to, if it includes humans, the creature is utterly and completely rejected. Felix beats him, and although the creature could have torn Felix limb to limb, he doesn't. He just sits there and takes it, and then he gets up and runs away. Um, in chapter 16, we have another illusion. I can spell chapter 16. The very beginning, let's see here, let me read the quote to you. Okay, chapter 16, he says, "Cursed, cursed creator, why did I live? Why in that instant did I not extinguish the spark of existence which you had so wantonly bestowed?" It's this first part, this cursed, cursed creator, it's I can't even talk, sorry. It's an allusion, and I can't get rid of that little line either. It's an allusion to Job. Okay, and Job, while he never curses God, he curses himself. He doesn't curse his creator. He feels like he is at fault for having all of these, bad things happen to him, basically. And so he's he's asking himself, like, why didn't I kill myself? Because this is the worst feeling that I can ever have in life. And so why didn't I just extinguish that spark of existence? So he's really kind of he's really thinking about his position and where he is, and if it's even worth living at this point. We have another allusion to Paradise Lost. It says, like the arch fiend bore a hell within me. So he's starting to kind of feel those ideas of resentment, and he's wanting to get vengeance on the whole, whole bunch of, or a whole lot of humanity. Okay, so this is our turning point. He's now after vengeance. He's been rejected one too many times, and now he's going to come after the humans. Um, he kind of has a moment of uh, confliction, I guess, and he's thinking, okay, I really didn't present myself very well to the Lacey family, so I'm going to go back to my hovel and see if I can, basically just get a redo here. He's really kind of feeling bad, and he's starting to blame himself. He's like, okay, that was kind of stupid, but then whenever he returns, he realizes that the DeLaceys have left. And this really leaves him distraught. And so we have this major climactic moment of whenever he's piling all of the, flammable things up around the hovel and on the house, and he burns it to the ground. He waits until it is beyond saving, and then he leaves. And he's like dancing around, and he's screaming, and he's yelling, and it kind of gives you this sense of Paradise Lost whenever the demons are in pandemonium and they are all like jumping around and yelling, and they're all excited over the destruction that they are um, releasing on the earth and on humans. So that's our moment where the creature is no longer, he's no longer, I guess, affected by the rejection of humans. He's negatively affected by them. I guess I should say he's still affected because he kind of has this hatred toward them, and all of his hatred manifests itself. This fire scene kind of relates to that blasted stump that we talked about. I think it was in chapter 2. It was at the beginning of the novel where Frankenstein looks at the stump that was destroyed by the lightning, and it's kind of this gothic image, and he's just so completely amazed that fire could do this, horribly beautiful thing. And so it relates in the sense that it's basically opposite. Um, I mean, it's not opposite actually. Frankenstein is amazed by the lightning and the fire's power, and almost a little afraid of it, I think. The creature is not afraid of it. He uses it for destruction. And so he's fascinated with it as well, but it's kind of a darker sense than it is with Frankenstein. Okay, let me see here. Oh, and then we have the moment where the creature talks about William, and he thinks that he's going to use William to show that, if a child can trust this horribly awful creature, then anyone can. And so when William starts to scream and everything, the creature kills him, and he feels triumphed. He is triumphant, so he triumphed over the murder. And he was just excited about it. He was glad, and he said, "Oh man, this was my first victim, and it felt great. I loved it." And anyways, he just kind of has this moment that um, he's just basically lost his mind or lost any sort of empathy or sympathy that he once had. Then he put the locket in Justine's pocket. He says, ha, that rhymed. Did you guys catch that? He says, awake, fairest, thy lover is near, he who would give his life but to obtain one look of affection from thine eyes. My beloved, awake. He whispers that in her ear, and that's when she kind of stirs. You remember in her own story, she said she heard a noise and she stirred a little bit, but she didn't fully wake up. So he's whispering that in her ear. He puts the pocket or the locket in her pocket, and then he leaves, knowing that she is going to be convicted for his crime. At the end, we have what he has wanted the whole time. Whenever he talked to Frankenstein, he said, I have but one request. I want you to listen to my tale first, and then I'm going to ask you. And he wants Frankenstein to create a mate for him. He wants a female creature that will be just as horrid and awful, and they will, they can be together against humanity forever. So that's all I have today. I'll see fourth period in class today and sixth period tomorrow. Have a great day, guys.